Hi, everyone. Good afternoon. I'm really excited to be here. Before I introduce myself, I thought that I would get a sense of who our audience is. So one of the first things, and I have to keep on being close to the Mac because I'm using mine, so it may go on sleep, so we'll try not to make that happen. So I want to understand who is here today first. So let me just ask a couple of questions. So how many of you are actually developers here? Okay. How many of you are in a security, data privacy, data protection, legal compliance function? Okay, all right, so majority of the people. So I'm talking to the right group here. How many of you are working for companies that have presence in more than one country? Okay, great, so also more than half. And how many of you are already on GCP? And how many of you are on GCP as well as have data on the other public cloud providers like Azure, AWS? And how many of you have still some of your data on premise? Okay. So it seems like more than 50% of people here are in the security, data protection function, are on cloud, on GCP, have hybrid type of a work environment. Okay, great. So that's really good to know. That helps me tailor the presentation here a little bit. So a little bit about me. I'm Rashi Mittal. I am working on Data Custodian, responsible for go-to-market, commercialization, customer engagement, and talking to customer, understanding how we should continue developing the solution. So we've partnered. This product has come out of our partnership with Google. So it is a layer of data visibility and data control for customers who are sitting on GCP. So that's what the product is about. So, before I go a little bit further and talk about data and data protection and the solution itself, I thought that I would discuss a little bit about why SAP is focused on doing this. So SAP so majority of the people are aware of, know SAP. Yes, okay. Sometimes in Silicon Valley, you'd be surprised I get questions around, oh, what is SAP? So that's good to know. So SAP has been responsible and its purpose and its mission has always been to drive, to make sure that enterprises are running better. And, uh-oh, that happened. Give me a second. So SAP has been, I'm going to stay here. Don't want this to go to sleep again. So SAP has been its mission has been to make sure that enterprises run better, and we have been for years been part of making sure that we have extremely innovative solutions around business processes. And so we see Data Custodian as an extension of that, as we provide an extra layer of visibility and control of your end-to-end data on a Google Cloud platform. So, as I'm going through introduction, I'm going to go through sort of the Data Custodian features, why the solution has been developed, the demo, and the question and answers. So first, let's talk about data. So we know that we're living in a world where there is a lot of data. Doesn't matter which organization you're part of. You're probably monetizing on your data. It's often a lifeline for most customers. If you are in financial services, the financial data is extremely important. If you are in retail, I'm assuming a lot of customers here are from the retail industry. So they are using data for their operations, for making sure that they are selling and putting the right products out there. If you are in healthcare, very regulated industry, but the data volume keeps on increasing with genomics, with clinical studies. A lot of your records, which used to be on paper, now are electronic health records. So the volume of data just keeps on increasing, right? And that's a fact. So the question becomes, what should I do about this data, and how do I protect it? So you are here at Google Next, and a majority of the people here are already on cloud. So I don't necessarily need to speak too much about the benefits of public cloud, but I will say that the reason why a lot of you have placed your data on public cloud is because of the various benefits, which include scalability, elasticity, pricing, reduced implementation time. Even so, if you look at the studies, only a small percentage of companies have a public-only cloud architecture. And what I mean by that is you may have some of your data on public cloud, but many companies are hesitant to put all of their data, especially sensitive data or data maybe in some of their data, maybe European data, et cetera, on public cloud for various reasons. So can anybody say why that may be true, that the cloud adoption is still not where we would want to see, where I'm sure Google would want to see? Loss of control. Any other answers? Okay. Perception. Okay. Great. Yeah. So I think those are all very good answers. So we did an ASUG survey recently, and in that ASUG survey, not just because this is a security session, but security did come as sort of number third after implementation issues and migration cost issues as the reason why cloud adoption is not where it should be, or where Google would want, for example, cloud adoption to be. And with the security, so we went a little deeper into that. Okay, well, what does security mean, right? And security could mean some of the identity access management issues, but it is a lot of things around perception. It is an emotional thing for a lot of customers who are used to having their data on premise for a very long time, and now putting it on public cloud, they have lost the control. They've given control to a third party now, and there is a lack of visibility. There is a lack of complete transparency as to where the data is, and that is a continued concern, which is a concern we're hoping to solve with SAP Data Custodian. One of the other concerns that I've heard, so SAP is a European company. So I've traveled to Europe and I've talked to some of our customers there, some of our salespeople there, and I think one of the concerns that comes up, and this concern is very relevant with the Facebook Cambridge Analytica case that recently happened. Well, if we give access to our data, is it being accessed in an unauthorized, unintended way? That's a huge concern for many customers as well. And that access, so it's surprising when you look at a lot of breaches. People think, oh, it must, all these breaches must be happening because of hackers. In fact, interestingly, it's your own employees, often because of either negligence or because they've gone rogue. For example, that leads to a lot of issues around some type of a breach, et cetera. So your own cloud provider access as well as access by your own employees is something that is a huge concern, and especially when you put the data on public cloud platform, the concern becomes, well, will I have visibility and control, and can I have some level of full control over that? So the third, I think, point, so, talked about transparency and control, talked about cloud provider access. I think the third issue that also becomes a concern for some customers, or a challenge, if you will, for many customers, are the data protection regulations that are varying. So how many of you have heard and have worked with GDPR? Okay, so majority of the room, right? So it just went into effect. There's GDPR. There are also almost 60 countries. I was just reading something last night. There are almost 60 countries that have varying data protection regulations. And after GDPR going into effect, I'm sure there will be other countries that are not only coming up with new regulations. So cloud is, globally connected. When you place your data in a globally connected cloud, I think for some customers, the concern becomes, well, which law will apply, right? So the concern is not just, the concern could be data localization and data residency laws that exist all throughout the world, but the other concern is which law applies if my data does move around. And that's where there are some needs for having something around geolocation. So given the various challenges around privacy, around transparency, around control, I think the question becomes, well, how can companies benefit from public cloud and still retain control of their business data? So this is where we thought that trust but verify is an extremely important concept. So we're moving towards innovation, right? We're here in the Bay Area. Everybody wants to innovate quickly. There's a lot of data. The data volume is growing. So the choice or the option is not to keep all your data stored on premise, right? Cloud has a lot of benefits as we talked about it, and you want to be able to use public cloud. But how do you stay in public cloud but still be able to have some level of control and visibility of your data? Well, you can have a third party that can help you with verification around that. And our ASUG survey actually helped in that response as well, that a verification mechanism with a third party that already has a relationship with the enterprises makes a lot of sense. So which is where SAP Data Custodian comes in. SAP Data Custodian, just a little dashboard over there. It is a SaaS application that we have developed, and the first phase of this solution is generally available. So I'll go a little bit deeper into what this solution is. So before I go into that, we have defined data custodians to be responsible for the implementation of business rules that relate to the access and protection of business data. So as I mentioned, there are two key phases of our solution. There is data transparency, which is generally available, which helps with monitoring and reporting of data access, storage, and movement, and processing of your data in the public cloud. So you will have more visibility into how your data is accessed, how it's stored, where it's being moved, and where it's being processed in the public cloud. And the data control is our second part of the solution, which is going to be available throughout the rest of the year. We're working on that. So we have a very robust policy engine that we have developed out of Data Custodian. So an example for that would be that you are a company and you have some sensitive data sitting in Germany, maybe your HR data in Germany. And you may want to keep some of that data only within Germany on public cloud. You can develop a policy through our portal. And we are able to, in the data control piece, actually enforce those policies. So in the first section, we're giving you a lot of robust visibility, monitoring, reporting. And in the second section, we're able to help you with the enforcement of those policies. And I will go through a demo, so this will all become more clear. So as I mentioned, the transparency is going to help you answer the following key questions. Where is my data stored? How has the data been moved and processed? And who is accessing my data and from which location? So I think some people here mentioned that they are concerned about what is happening to the data once it is in public cloud. That's what this part of the product helps with. And I think I also heard control over there. So this is where the second part of our the functionalities which are going to come soon are going to help with. So it's helping with your governance, it's helping with your compliance, and essentially this is where SAP truly becomes quote unquote data custodian, where we're able to help enforce the geolocation controls for data access, storage, processing, and movement. So I think the question I have received often is, well, why SAP, right? And I started out with saying SAP helps with enterprises, run better. We have been masters and have a lot of expertise around business processes. But further along, we have a lot of expertise in governance, risk, and compliance. We have a lot of knowledge about public cloud platforms. And even so, we are actually independent of public cloud platforms. And I think that's where that concept of trust but verify becomes really important. So this is why it makes sense for SAP to come in. And you may already have an existing relationship with SAP. You may be using our various applications, our various business processes. And this will be yet something else that we can help you with while you're in public cloud. So this is where I'm going to do a little demo for you. Okay, great. So this is, okay. So this is our dashboard. So let's say that you have bought our, know. There you go. Okay. So let's say that you have, you're already starting to use Data Custodian. You come in Monday morning, maybe your cloud analyst, wants to make sure that they have full visibility of your data on public cloud. So they will sign into this homepage. They'll sign into the cockpit view, and they're going to see a few things. Before they see that, though, I wanted to go into the My Cloud page, My Cloud tab, which is a very important tab. So let's say before you have, so I've talked about that we have a very robust policy engine with Data Custodian. So before you develop the policies, you can come to this page and are able to see where all your data is distributed globally on Google Cloud Platform. So this is sort of your data placement view, and you can see that your data is spread all over the world. Some of it is in India, some is Europe, some in the US. So just having a visibility of how your data is spread out is exactly helping with that visibility that we were talking about. Similarly, you can see where the data is being accessed from. So some of your data may be sitting in Europe, but it's being accessed whether by your employee, maybe a Google support engineer from United States. You can also see, sorry, it's a little slow. Well, technically, it should be showing data movement. So let's just pretend that it did. And we'll go back to the home page. And we'll show you data movement in another view here. So, again, going back to the home page, so we have this concept of unions that we have coined with Data Custodian. The concept of union is a geolocation-defined area where your data can be placed, stored, moved, or processed. So here you can see that we have, U.S.-China union, which probably is slightly less realistic, but you can have a Canada-Brazil union, so you may want your data to be staying and access and process and move between just Canada and Brazil. And you can have a European Union, and I will go into the policy management, so you'll be able to see how we are developing the policies as well. So you can have the European Union, and I'll just click on that, and there you can see that you have on the corner here on the left-hand side, you can see how the compliance has been for the European Union in the last few days. You can see what alerts have come up. So you have 5 levels of alerts. So a level 1 alert is not as scary probably as a level 5 alert. So level 5 alert may be an example of, you have very strict German regulations. You want some of your HR data to stay within Germany, but for some reason it has moved outside of Germany. And that might be a risk level that you have assigned 5, and that would show up as an alert. So we're seeing a risk level of 4. We're seeing how the risk overview has been for the Union, the European Union, in the last 7 days. And on the side here, you have a lot of other interesting information about the European Union and how much data is stored there and how much of it is. So there's also a tagging functionality as part of our solution. So you can tag the data to be highly sensitive or less sensitive. And so here we distribute. So most of the data here, it seems, is sensitive. And you can see total storage size as well as resources. So we have Data Custodian at the infrastructure level. So what we are actually showing you visibility of is, all your infrastructure level data. So virtual machines, your disks, your buckets. So you can see, what the resources look like for this particular union. So I'm going to go to the union itself and see if we have any alerts there. Actually, before I do that, let me show you how to make a policy. So because the policy engine is a very important part of the solution, so I'm going to go and see European Union. So I will show you the. So here, to define a policy, and this is something that you can do is, you're going to have a name of the policy. You can have an action of allow or deny. You will have an operation. So the 4 operations right now that we are looking into are access, placement, movement, and processing. You will have resource classes. So this is a very interesting part of our policy engine. So either you can say all my resources on Google Cloud Platform, or you can get more granular. So you can either choose it by resource classes. So you can say all my virtual machines or all my buckets. Or you can also be even more granular and say choose a specific bucket. So that the bucket in Germany with that German data, HR data might be something that you can pick and have a specific policy for that. So you choose how granular you want to be. Now you also have to choose a location. So your data is sitting in European Union. That's your resource location. And now this is actually an access policy, right? So you are saying, I actually don't want some of my data to be accessed from United States. So I don't want my data, all of my data sitting in European Union to be accessed from United States. So that's something that you can choose, and you can choose other countries as well. And you can choose, so if it's access, there are 2 accesses that we are monitoring. So it's your own customer access, your own employee access, as well as Google access. So you can choose either all, that you don't want any of your access from a Google support engineer, or your own employee access to happen from United States. Because you're concerned about US regulation. You're concerned that under Patriots Act, maybe the government is going to somehow want some of that data, which is sitting, and so that's why you want to really keep some of your data defined and controlled and not being accessed outside of Europe. And that could be a good reason of why you want to do that. Or you could have some other technology or other reasons. And then you have to define a risk level, which can be lowest, low, medium, high, or highest. And then that's a summary of a policy that you would have. So going back to the homepage, I'm not sure if there are any questions. I'm going to go back to the European Union and show you what happens when an alert comes up. I may have to change it to the last 3 months. Oh, maybe that's what it is. So I mean, this is, we've generated some data for this particular demo, so it's showing a lot of alerts and a lot of these red alerts. So I'm going to click on one of these red alerts to see what's going on. So as I click on it, we see that there has been an access violation. So I just went through the policy that we just developed, which was the policy that we don't want your European Union data to be accessed by somebody sitting in the United States, except in this case, there was an actual violation that happened. And so in this particular case, during from our transparency, where our product is today, you can do a couple of different things. You can get more information about that and see why that may have happened. So in this case, it may be that one of your employees from the European Union is actually traveling to the United States, and you feel comfortable with them accessing this data. If that's the case, then you can verify it by saying, okay, or, employee moving, and then submit that, and then that will make the policy go away. So let's just do that. And then, as soon as you have resolved the policy and it goes from red to green. Another option would be that you can actually change the policy itself. So maybe there have been some changes in where you want your data to be accessed from. Maybe you're now comfortable with it all being accessed from US because you've opened up a new center in the US, and a lot of your US employees are going to be accessing it. So you could also go ahead and completely change the policy and no longer have this policy. So those are the various things you can do with the alerts. And just wanted to show you one other thing quickly before I open it up for Q&A. So you also have the option to actually run reports, which is something that your data privacy officer, your legal compliance department may want to use. So And depending on the dates, you will have a lot more information around what the alert trends have been, the risk level of these alerts, resolved versus unresolved alerts, the data type, et cetera. And again, in this case, because we've generated some data for this demo, you can see there are a lot of unresolved alerts. Hopefully that's not going to happen. Hopefully you're not actually having a lot of these violations. You're having a fewer violations and you're able to investigate and resolve them on a day-to-day basis. So that was a quick demo. We also have a lot of our team here, technical, and our developers and our product owners. So happy to answer any questions. So I can answer them, and we also have other people who can help answer, and we also have people from Google here.